Genesect set up, I just jumped out with a very roaring lead, and I am just going to run away with the game. But now that Mew, over time, through trials and tribulations, has become forced to adapt and disrupt the opponent and play a much more intricate game, we have this wild hybrid Mew with the double turbo energies and the fusion energies, path to the peak, all kinds of different ways to really mess with your opponent being able to either get established or be able to push their lead. And these players are going to really showcase how the modern Mew mirror goes.
Pramawat, of course, coming off a top 4 finish at this year's World Championships. I mean, that top 4 finish at Worlds secured him an invite to the 2024 World Championships. So he's kind of just free rolling here at this event and any event that he competes in, just trying to do as good as he possibly can. Of course, Pramawat also the winningest player in regional championship history with 7 titles under his belt.
And when you've been playing for as long as he has, that's just something you're going to naturally accumulate, I would say, just through mathematics, right? And, you know, Michael Pramawat is just the player that a lot of others look up to. The fact that even though he's qualified for Worlds, still wants to come out and compete, you know, hang out with the crew, and just figure out how the metagame is developing leading up to that Masters competition just speaks to his caliber of a player, where you just don't want to kick back on your laurels. If there's a big competition near me and I can make the time to head down there, why shouldn't I?
Here we go. This game is underway. Both players starting a Genesect, and Xander Pro is going to kick things off with that ever-powerful Battle VIP pass.
The best card for Mew, gets it set up, gets all those powerful Genesect V down onto the bench, and it's just great fodder for later on in the game. You know, you can just discard it as an item card for the Pramawat, Ultra Ball, etc. So overall, I think that Genesect V, Mew VMAX in general, one of the best users of Battle VIP Pass.
Yeah, and this is really one of the most powerful decks in the entire format, especially when you just consider the draw power. Now, Fusion Mew, a little bit less consistent than something like the straight double turbo Mew. There's a few more things that can clunk up your draws, all those Fusion Strike energies, the Alessa Sparkles, things of that nature. And looking at the two players' lists, there's really not too many differences between them. Xander is playing Ice Cube. That is something that Michael Pramawat does not have access to.
Yes,
and then they're both kind of playing the standard searching cards. Michael Pramawat is only playing one copy of Alessa Sparkle, however.
Yeah, that's going to be more difficult to get the Miloetas established. I know that players have really started to gravitate back towards the Fusion builds just because of the early aggressive potential and for the Fusion energies protecting your Genesects from the Spiritomb.
Pretty awkward opening hand here from Xander. He does have a Pramawat, which is usually pretty good, but I think he might just want to guarantee the card draw with something like the Ultra Ball, discarding that. He also has a few Power Tablet in this opening hand, and he also did prize, or no, I think it was Pramawat prize the Power Tablet over on his end.
Yeah, when you don't have the Power Tablets, it does become difficult to hit those Mew VMAX numbers. It's an awkward cadence of needing to set up a 2-turn KO on that big 3-prize Pokemon, and then your opponent potentially being able to, you know, use that Psychic Leap and undo that damage. It's going to, hopefully, you know, best case scenario, you want to just do KO Genesect to Genesect to Genesect or something.
Something Xander may want to try to do, you see this sometimes from these Mew VMAX players in the mirror match, when they're going first, is trying to put 2 1-prize Pokemon in play and pushing one of those Pokemon into the active spot to end your turn so that your opponent doesn't get a 2-prize KO to start off their game.
Yeah, and after the escape rope puts Mew V into the active, finds a fusion energy from Miloeta, another fusion strike system to draw back up, another Battle VIP pass. Now, glorious draws here for Xander.
And this is the big question for me. Are we going to see another Genesect to draw more cards, or are we going to see the Ice Cube come down to be that 1-prize buffer, potentially? And it looks like Xander's just going to value his setup and maybe kind of cross his fingers that Pramawat cannot find a turn 1 2-prize KO.
Sometimes, especially in the mirror match, right, the Mew players want to, if their draw quality on this opening turn is good enough, you've got all of your draw with the Fusion Strike systems, you've got your Mew VMAX or a way to grab it, then maybe you just slam that path to the peak and make it awkward for your opponent to get off the ground.
Forest Sealstone, excellent to put into play. Probably doesn't want to utilize it just yet, but it's nice to have down so that if your opponent puts a path to the peak down, you're going to have that option. And speaking of path to the peak, that is the one thing here I think Xander would still like to find if he could.
Yeah, and then that's another decision point. Are you just going to use this immediately to get Path to the Peak to try to run away with the game, or do you save the Forest Seal Stone for down the road?
There's the big flip, and it is a heads. Xander can grab that path and try to slow Michael Pramawat down.
Yeah, you get to have your cake and eat it too now. Path to the Peak going to shut down Michael Pramawat's ability to draw cards with the Fusion Strike system, and then you have Forest Seal Stone to seal the deal on the game later on.
And I got a sneak peek at Pramawat's hand. While he doesn't have a stadium bump immediately, he's got a lot of really strong cards. He's got the Feather Ball, Nest Ball, and Battle VIP Pass. He can get a ton of basic Pokemon in play, and it looks like even a Judge to go with it. And now, with that top deck, even has Cramomatic to potentially work into the mix.
Yeah, there is 4 copies of Lost Vacuum in this deck as well. Trying to find a way to answer Path to the Peak. So still a lot of draws to happen yet, Chip. A lot of ways to find, that possibility. But if Michael does whiff on this, bumping the Path to the Peak, he's basically going to be out of the game, I want to say.
Yeah, he's going to have the Judge to do it, and there's plenty of cards he can find. We also may see him go for the Cramomatic, discarding the Feather Ball potentially. It's pretty tough. You like to get that extra Pokemon into play, and there's a chance the Feather Ball, the Cramomatic flips tails, and you don't get any value from that Feather Ball, so you probably just want to go the safer route of getting the Pokemon down. I think Pramawat did prize a Lost Vacuum, so that does decrease your odds a little bit of finding an out to this Path to the Peak.
All right, goes for Cramomatic, discards the Feather Ball, and
it is a heads. That is huge. This can get that Lost Vacuum, get rid of the Path to the Peak, and then still go for the Judge here.
And even though, you're spending a few resources trying to get this outcome, bump the Path to the Peak because of the Double Genesect V and all the cards that you're going to draw to make up for that, expenditure of resources on your first turn, I think that overall it's going to pay off. We're heading into a much more even game now, Chip.
And Pramawat, I did misspeak a little bit here. He probably does not want to go for the Judge. He definitely wants to try to find the Alessa Sparkle. He only plays one copy of it, so he's going to need to most likely Cramomatic for it or use that Forest Seal Stone for it. So we will see that Path to the Peak going down and that Fusion Strike energy going on to Meloetta. 3 cards to draw here. Let's see if he can piece together a turn 1 2-prize KO.
And one more. Forest Seal Stone, also a way to keep on reaching for those important cards, Chip.
Yeah, not too bad. A little awkward with the other cards found, though.
Ooh, Lost Vacuum also going to scoop up Xander Perot's Forest Seal Stone, trying to seal those options. One more Fusion Strike system to draw up to 4 cards in hand.
And Ultra Ball does mean we can keep going here. Can get rid of the Judge and the double turbo energy potentially, but it looks like he's going to accept his fate, recognize, hey, I need quite a bit to get the turn 1 KO, so I'll just play it safe, go for the Judge, and see if I can maneuver something in a future turn. Getting rid of the Forest Seal Stone on Xander's side makes Michael feel probably a little bit better about this. If he can find now his own path, it's going to decrease Xander's opportunity to try to make something happen.
Yeah, and because of the, okay, I drew a bunch of cards this turn, I got set up, I'm prepping for this line of play, capping it off with Path to the Peak to stop your opponent from disrupting your play, you can see we get this nice back and forth, this fencing match between the 2 Mew players. So in Heavy Ball was found. No Pokemon in the prizes, of course, for Michael Pramawat. Just going to fail that, get it out of the hand, but does pick up an extra Genesect V, so we have one more chance to dig, Chip.
Yeah, drawing up to 6 once again. Don't think that he has found a switch just yet, and we are going to see him flip the V-Star marker, using that Forest Seal Stone to go get any one card from the deck end. Yep.
Path to the Peak.
Xander even laughing at that coming into play.
Yeah, having the double Lost Vacuum was so huge. Getting rid of the path to open up your turn, to draw all the cards and get established, taking out Xander's Forest Seal Stone, and then ending the turn with Path to the Peak means it's very difficult for Xander to get out of this spot.
And Xander, I don't think, has anything in this hand. The Path to the Peak totally shutting him down. He has his own Path to the Peak. He's got a Battle VIP pass. Retreat to Meloetta and pass, I think, is going to be the play here.
Yeah, it can just evolve into Mew VMAX, and that's it. Using his single prize Pokemon buffer, as you talked about, Chip, to just buy some time. Has one more draw off the top to find a way to get around this Path to the Peak.
Now Pramawat does attach the energy to Meloetta, and he says, hey, if you can't do anything, Xander, maybe I'll just pass it right back.
Doesn't need to try to jump through a lot of
Pass
hoops to get
again.
to Genesect. Both players in an awkward scenario because of the path, but with the double turbo energy, Michael Pramawat is able to attach and
He's got a
retreat to bring up
boss.
Meloetta.
And he does have a boss in his hand, so we could see him go after a Mew V or a Genesect V to try to take 2 prize cards. Doesn't have that extra energy that he's going to put in play because he attached that double turbo for turn, though. So just knocking out the Meloetta, still pretty solid. And Xander top decking at the exact wrong time. That Alessa's Sparkle, that would have been a way for him to attack on the previous turn. He's not able to do it, and now is going to play it, choose these 2 Mew, but isn't going to piece together an attack this turn.
And now we've got Mew V in the active with an energy attached to it. Meloetta just kind of sitting there in the active. Now there's, again, 4 Fusion Strike energies, 3 double turbo energies for both players, and the Melodious Echoes only get stronger and stronger as Michael Pramawat's able to keep finding these Fusion Strike energies. There's a couple power tablets already in the hand that he's eyeballing.
We could see the energy mix for turn, and I think that is going to be the play, but Pramawat has another Fusion Strike energy in hand. Melodious Echo is going to take 2 prizes this turn.
And now, once you've gotten this far ahead, Michael Pramawat was the one that came out on top with this path to the peak war. So important for the mirror match. And as Xander just continues to draw and pass, it allows Michael Pramawat not only to take prizes, but also to continuously establish additional attackers moving forward. There's Mew V going down, Meloetta claiming another victim, 2 more prize cards for Michael Pramawat. Xander Perot is not out of the game yet, however, promotes Mew V Max. There's plenty of energy attached to it.
Ultra Ball can find any Pokemon from the deck. It's going to be another Genesect, most likely. However, he just doesn't have much else to work with. If Xander could have maybe found something like his Iono, that would be really strong. Disrupt Pramawat and take out his only established attacker. As it stands, Xander's going to have to take this 1 prize KO, and he's still super far behind in this game. And Pramawat has had multiple turns to just stack tons of strong cards in his hand. He has been holding on to this lost vacuum for quite some time.
Yeah, that's the difference maker in this matchup for sure. Xander Perot just knocking out the Meloetta, taking 1 prize, but still far behind in terms of tempo. Has maybe 2 more turns worth of draws to get a Forest Seal Stone or a Lost Vacuum to bump this path and really start to come back into his own.
Now, Michael does have an opportunity to potentially win the game. If he can play 4 damage modifiers, he can 1-hit KO the Mew VMAX and just take the win.
Heads on a Cram-O-Matic is a great way to start that off, Chip.
And Choice Belt is a decent damage modifier to grab. If he can combine this with 3 power tablets played this turn, he can get a 1-hit knockout on this active Mew VMAX.
There's 1 tablet in the deck, 2 in the hand. The final one is in the prizes.
So he's got a decent shot. And honestly, I'm not sure if it's in the prizes or not because our picture over here is from before he played Hisuian Heavy Ball.
Oh,
so,
very true.
Yeah, so it might be one of these pieces in his hand.
And then, of course, as you talked about, Chip has the Lost Vacuum in hand, so can go ahead and get rid of that stadium if he needs to.
Yeah, I think he
open up the Genesect
is probably just thinking through how likely it is that he can pull this off. Is it worth going for at this spot? Because he knows that this path to the peak has really slowed Xander down quite a bit. And since he's taking action here, I feel like he thinks he's got a pretty decent shot to piece together the 1-hit KO. He's got a good amount of the pieces already in this hand.
Mew VMAX evolve in the active. 2
Double
power
tablets.
tablets played. Choice Spell attached to the active. Ultra Ball to discard 2 remaining cards. The hand is now empty.
And Xander even laughing along at this spot, recognizing the situation. You know, he has played maybe more Mew VMAX than anyone else, even offering classes to fellow Pokemon trainers. You know, he knows this deck inside and out, so he knows there is a decent shot that he does not get to survive this turn.
And so after failing the Ultra Ball, rather getting the Genesect V off of it, empty hand, drawing up to 6.
Needs an energy card and a power tablet. There's the tablet. No energy just yet, though.
Ultra Ball to discard 2 more.
He can still dig quite a bit.
Yeah, we have switch or retreat back into the Mew VMAX.
I like this decision as well from Pramawat. Almost Ultra Ball discarded the Battle VIP Pass, but choosing instead to discard the Mew V. He holds on to the Battle VIP Pass, which normally, of course, not a very good card in a situation like this, but if he draws into Cram-O-Matic, it is an item card he can discard to give himself that 50-50 to find the game-winning energy.
Yep, and then, of course, Ultra Ball finds Mew VMAX, which you can immediately evolve onto that Mew V on the bench, thinning down the hand as much as possible. There, of course, now
all he needs is an energy. 3 Genesects still to utilize. 5 cards from this one.
Double turbo energy is found. There's the attach on the Mew VMAX, and Xander Pro scoops up game 1.
Yeah, and that was a perfect display of how strong Path to the Peak can be. I mean, Xander went first. He had a good setup, but Michael Pramawat stuck that path in play, played the judge, and Xander just really didn't find anything for many turns after that. Michael's able to come away with game 1.
Yeah, it was looking so good for Xander Pro after that first turn, getting the Path to the Peak established, but Michael Pramawat comes roaring back out with the double lost vacuum. Not only getting rid of that Path to the Peak to open up all the draw for the turn, but getting rid of Xander Pro's Forest Seal Stone really sealed the deal on this game.
Yeah, that was absolutely the big deal there. Pramawat getting rid of that Seal Stone so that Xander did not have that easy out on board already to deal with his disruptive stadium choice.
And I think that as we head into game number 2, both players recognize, this is how the matchup is going to go. We've seen it time and time again. Even this new build with the Fusion Strike energies, having Meloetta as an additional buffer with the single prize attacker, just means that the early game becomes a bit more volatile. There's the threat, of that early Alessa Sparkle being able to take 1 or 2 prize cards before a player can get established, and if one Meloetta does get set up, Path to the Peak becomes even more threatening.
It's an interesting choice here. Does Xander decide to go first or second? Of course, by losing game 1, he gets the choice if he wants to go first or second, and there's really arguments for both. If he goes second, he has the potential to get a turn 1 Meloetta attack to take 2 prizes and get really, really far ahead, but by going second, he gives himself a decent shot to be locked down by Path to the Peak. It is a risky gambit. He decides it's not worth it, choosing to go first so that he can get his board set up, and it's really going to pay off nicely as well. Pramawat actually had a Meloetta in the prizes and 2 Path to the Peak. Those are really bad prizes in this mirror match.
And so Xander Pro opting to go first is not going to be feeling that much pressure, can finally get established, and hopefully play another clean game to take us to a game number 3. After this Battle VIP pass searches through the deck, Xander Pro is getting an idea of what was in the prizes. Nothing too detrimental on his side, fortunately.
Yeah, one thing I'll definitely say about this matchup is we are going to have a winner. It is very unlikely that there will be a tie in a Mew VMAX mirror match.
And I remember, back in the early days when Mew first hit the scene here as it's just about to rotate out of the format, when it first hit the play and we saw this matchup, this mirror constantly chip.
Yep.
It was just, boom, I knocked out 2 Mew VMAX and the game was over.
Yep, it's really all it took. And these days, usually going for like a 2-2-2 line is going to be pretty good. 2 prizes, 2 prizes, 2 prizes. And then, of course, attacking with your single prize Meloetta somewhere in the mix does make things pretty solid.
Right. The capability of this deck to one-hit knock out the Mew VMAX with enough damage modifiers is still a pretty tall order, right? It's still a lot of cards that need to be drawn, a lot of Pramawat heads that need to turn up to make that happen. And you can see Xander discarding the power tablet, recognizing that I'm not going to try to play for that sort of line.
Just valuing his setup even more, grabbing another Genesect. He would probably like to get 2 Forest Seal Stone into play. He does play 3 copies of the card, because if you get just 1 in play, what can happen is what we saw last game. Your opponent gets rid of it with the Lost Vacuum. You're kind of in a tough spot if they judge path you. But if he gets 2 Forest Seal Stone in play, it's a lot more difficult for Michael to be willing to commit 2 Lost Vacuums to get rid of that card.
Right, and Xander had, the Forest Seal Stone and didn't use it, went for the Pramawat and got the Path to the Peak instead. He's the type of player that wants to save that Forest Seal Stone as long as possible to close out a game. Heads on the Pramawat, even though it went off screen. You can see him nodding his head and searching through the deck. And what is the pick here, Chip? He's going first, so doesn't really need a supporter, probably just grabbing a path or a Forest Seal Stone. It depends on what else is in the hand.
Yeah, it looks like he did grab the double turbo energy, which I like a lot as well. Even if you do get stuck with a path in play, if you at least have a double turbo energy in play on one of your Mew V, all you need to attack the next turn is a Mew VMAX. So any Ultra Ball, any Mew VMAX gives you that chance to pull off an attack, even if your opponent does shut you down.
Beautiful. Has the double turbo now. Still have attacking potential against the Path to the Peak while it's in play. Michael Pramawat starting Genesect. Doesn't seem to have a way to get this out of the draw for turn.
Yeah, he's got plenty of ways to get it out of the active. There's switch and escape rope, but there's no bump to this Path to the Peak. And no supporter card as well. So this VIP Pass is really strong. It's definitely the best card you want to see in your opening hand as a Mew VMAX player. And this, I think, example right here with this card coming into the play to end Xander's turn is exactly why, even though he lost game number 1, he chose to go first because he knew the path is an out for him to slow Pramawat down, but it's also a way that Pramawat could try to slow him down if he had ever chosen second.
Right, and in game number 1, Michael Pramawat was really down in the dumps until he was able to have that lost vacuum. That was incredibly fortunate for him.
I think we're going to see the energy mix from Michael's end of the field. Not the attack you really want to be going for, but it's not too bad, and especially in this situation, Michael just doesn't have anything else going on. He's hoping for a top deck, but at least by using energy mix to get a double turbo energy out of the deck, attaching it to the benched Mew V, with the Mew VMAX he has in hand, he can do something guaranteed next turn.
Yeah, and sometimes this is what happens. You know, the early path to the peak sticks, neither players are drawing cards off the Fusion Strike system, and it kind of turns into a top deck war anyway. So if you have those strong cards in your hand and you can get set up, Michael Pramawat could still maybe come back into this game despite having just a Genesect V.
And similarly to game 1, where Michael Pramawat was the person with Path to the Peak locked in play, holding on to Lost Vacuum, waiting for the opportune time, Xander Perot does just that. Recognizes Michael didn't do much. I don't need to bump the path with my own Lost Vacuum and try to draw a bunch of cards. I'm going to hold on to my Vacuum and see what Pramawat wants to do. And
ooh, I love this. The retreat into the Genesect V plus Escape Rope. I don't want to hit into this Mew VMAX. I want to strike at something smaller, try to get some prize cards.
Pramawat can play this hand all the way down, is going to choose to do it, but only 2 cards going to be drawn from this Genesect. Cramomatic's not a bad one, but no item card to discard.
Oh, this is heartbreaking. There's the Techno Blast.
2 prize cards. That ties the game up at least, but you look at the board disparity between these 2 players, you can tell who's ahead here.
Yeah, especially with the Path to the Peak being forced to be bumped by Michael Pramawat. Xander Pro can draw a ton of cards here, has a massive opportunity to just simply reestablish another Path to the Peak. Alessa's Sparkle going to thin some Fusion Strike energies out and turn Meloetta into a big threat as a single prize attacker.
Yeah, and I think I would still like to see Xander attack with the Mew VMAX this turn. Save that Meloetta as a way that if you just get 1 more Fusion Strike energy in play, you can pretty easily KO just about anything Michael throws in front of you.
Yeah, and because as a single prize attacker, it's awkward for Michael Pramawat to try to hunt that down.
Yeah. And
you just keep this great split pressure going.
1 card being drawn. It's another power tablet. Not something I expect that Xander wants to utilize here.
No Forest Seal Stones in play. Xander Pro has some awkward lost vacuums that are clunking up the hand, making it hard to draw with the Fusion Strike system.
Cross Fusion Strike will copy the Melodious Echo, does take the knockout. Pramawat draws for turn, does find a Forest Seal Stone. He's got just barely enough to try to hang on here.
Cramomatic discards the Power Tablet. And this is a beautiful Tails.
Not what Pramawat wanted to see. Does at least have that Seal Stone. Now can get any single card out of the deck. And it's really tough when you find yourself in these situations as the Mew VMAX player because you don't have your Battle VIP pass anymore. It only works on turn 1. You don't have any great consistent way to get more Pokemon in play so that you can have the powerful turns that Mew VMAX is known for. Pramawat, though, eyeing up Iono, realizing that his only way back into this game is going to be through Disruption.
And look at this. Goes for the Iono, doesn't set up the path. Says, I might be able to get a couple Genesects off of this, still draw some extra cards. Plenty of time to draw into another Path to the Peak if I need to.
And Ultra Ball is a workable card here, and he actually has 2 Ultra Ball. But no, Pramawat says he doesn't think he can win from this position. Maybe not having enough Genesect left in the deck. He decides to scoop this one, and we are going to Game 3 with 30 minutes remaining, Adam.
Yeah, a lot of time to make sure that this resolves in a winner. I don't think there was ever going to be any doubt, but Michael Pramawat did a really good job of, still fighting back with that early Path to the Peak. And now heading into Game 3, this is important, Chip. Pramawat's the one who gets to choose to go first, potentially having a strong opening play and capping it off with that Path to the Peak.
Yeah, Pramawat is playing 3 copies of Path, so he's a little bit more likely to find it. Xander does only have 2 copies in his list. So Pramawat going first is going to give himself a decent shot and try to lock Xander down right away.
Yeah, even having, I loved the retreat into the escape rope, still finding those extra prizes by taking down the, the Mew V, and it just wasn't enough, unfortunately. Because once you have your Mew VMAX in the active, you're giving Xander Pro all the time in the world to just draw tons of cards, find those damage modifiers. It's just definitely too tall of an order, especially if the Mew VMAX just gets hit. Doesn't even need to be a one-turn knockout. Then you'd have this huge 3-prize liability floating around.
5-0 start for both of these players. Excellent position without a doubt. They're wanting to get as many match points here in day one. These are both players who always have their eye on the prize, looking towards top 8 and eventually a shot at this regional champion title.
We've got a monstrously strong deck in the hands of monstrously strong players, and it's no surprise we're going to game number 3. Michael Pramawat has to take a mulligan here. No basic Pokemon in the active. Very rare, but it can still happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a decent amount of Pokemon in this deck, but, if you, even with, 8, 9 basic Pokemon in your list, if you shuffle up and draw a new hand 100 times, there's going to be some times that you don't have a basic Pokemon. That's just how statistics work.
Right, and of course, Xander now going to be starting with an extra card, gets one more chance to draw into maybe a path bump or something to nullify Michael Pramawat's turn 1 advantage here in game number 3.
Prize cards going out. Oh no, 2 Genesect for Michael Pramawat. Not ideal. A power tablet for each player as well is not super great. Lost Vacuum on Xander's side and a Fusion Strike Energy. Really not great prizes for either of these players. Pramawat is going to get bailed out here a little bit though, because he actually is playing that Hisuian Heavy Ball. We saw it in game 1, and I'm pretty sure Skarzig, I saw it in his opening hand.
Feather Ball is the option, seeing that the Genesects are missing. And, maybe it's fine, Chip. Maybe you don't need to draw cards because Path of the Peak is just going to be in play all game between both of these players, right? So you don't need Genesect Feed. Well, it'll be fine.
Like you taught me in our opening, Skarzig, if there's one thing Pokemon players love, it's drawing cards. So I totally expect to see Pramawat fill this board with Genesect, try to draw as much as he can, and then lock in that path.
Yep,
slow Xander down as much as he can.
Heavy Ball grabbing the Genesect V, plus the Mew V on the bench. Ultra Ball to thin down. It's looking pretty good here, Chip.
Yeah, he can thin this down pretty nicely as well, discarding this Judge and then playing Pal Pad to put the Judge right back. Now, burning the Pal Pad resource doesn't feel great in this opening. It can be really strong to get follow-up boss's orders later on in the game, but these games are usually so fast that is something that really doesn't come up nearly as often as it might in other matchups.
Right, and again, you have to capitalize on going first, and Michael Pramawat wants to just draw as many cards as possible, thin down the hand to keep drawing back up with the Fusion Strike systems. There's always a chance, Battle VIP Pass to be found.
3 cards from this Fusion Strike system. He does have the Lost Vacuum in hand, so would love to see a pass, but no, a really awkward
attach belt, vacuum belt.
That feels really bad though, because belt is really strong and your vacuums are really strong. So
yeah, it doesn't go for the greed. Just says, you know what? Fine, I'll just draw some cards then. And there's the pass, and it's fine, right? Now that you have the Lost Vacuum, you aren't concerned about getting locked out entirely of your draw engine. And with 2 Genesect down, it's fine. I can bump the path and just keep drawing cards and really come out swinging. It's difficult for Mew, to do the turn 1 attacks without, crazy Meloetta start, Ellis Sparkle, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and that's exactly what Xander's going to be eyeing up here. His eyes definitely widened a little bit when no Path to the Peak came into play. We'll see if he can piece it together. It's definitely something he's got in his mind and he's going to try to go for. It would let him jump pretty far in the lead pretty quickly.
I'm definitely committing one of the biggest follies of underestimating Mew's ability to draw and combine very specific cards together very early in the game to make miracles happen.
Make miracles happen indeed. And Meloetta is going to try to sing its greatest song in this position.
Yeah, it's game number 3, Swiss round 6. You're trying to keep this massive win streak alive to have a strong, berth into day 2. And you're doing it against one of the best players ever to play the game. So if anybody's going to do it, it's Xander Pro. Meloetta hits the bench. That's step 1.
And he's got a few Fusion Strike Pokemon in his hand already, a Mew V and a Genesect. And I think there is a Forest Sealstone as well. This is shaping up to be a pretty strong turn for Xander.
Mew V is benched. Genesect V for Seal Stone.
Even has a Cramomatic in the hand if he draws into an item card. Just one.
Draws 2 cards off the
in
first
play.
one. Cramomatic discards the power tablets, looking for a little bit more here. Battle VIP Pass, something to extend this.
It does
was
hit
a
the
head.
heads. Wow.
Oh.
And he's already got a Genesect in his hand, so there's a chance he goes for something else, one of the other combo piece cards he may need. And it looks like it will be that Alessa Sparkle. He knows he's still got that Forest Sealstone. This guarantees that Xander is going to be able to pull off the turn 1 Melodious Echo here. He's got everything he needs to do it.
Well, I'll be Doubters in shambles. Skarzig in shambles. Turn 1 Melodious Echo. I never should have doubted.
Yeah, here we go. That's what the deck likes to try and do in these matchups, and it's going to jump Xander pretty far in the lead in this game. I mean, we saw him recognize the situation like, if I pull this off, I'm going to be really far ahead. And that's why we saw the Cramomatic be willing to discard something so strong like a Power Tablet, which normally you want to try to use to extend for a one-hit KO on a Mew VMAX in this mirror.
And finally, after drawing off of this last Fusion Strike system, gets
so
another
good.
Genesect.
And a Fusion Strike energy as well. He's not even going to have to use that Forest Sealstone if he doesn't want to. And he has a Path to the Peak in his hand as well, let's not forget.
That is amazing, Chip. Having your cake and eating it too. Finds a Battle VIP Pass. The bench is full, can't burn that out now. But just save it for later. Nice discard fodder, nice fodder for Lost Vacuum.
Yeah, this is just an excellent, excellent turn here for Xander. Path to the Peak as well, like we mentioned, 2 prize cards. This is Xander's turn 1, and this exact situation is why so many players have hated Mew VMAX for so long. But Xander has been the one to say, you know what, why would I hate on something so powerful? He's been the one riding this wave.
Yeah, and you know, for a long time, Meloetta kind of wasn't in the mix for these Mew decks for a while, and now it's come back, and we all remembered that we've just been living on borrowed time, Chip. We've been living in fear of Meloetta for so long, we just never realized it.
Pramawat having the great response with the Lost Vacuum, and now he's going to draw 5 cards with a Fusion Strike system.
Find some Forest Seal Stones, a Path to the Peak to cap off this turn once he responds beautifully to this Meloetta.
And does have the energy card to guarantee the attack here that this Meloetta will go down.
3. Ooh, nice. Cramomatic can get rid of this useless Battle VIP Pass. Keep on digging in the deck. Remember, there's 2 Genesects in the prize card. No, 1 more in the prize cards from the Heavy Ball. So there's still 1 more left in the deck to be found here if Michael Pramawat can draw just a little bit more. When you're behind, when your opponent's got this 2 prize lead, a dangerous Meloetta in the active, all you can do is just draw cards, Chip. Just draw to make the pain go away.
Draw and draw and draw some more. Now, Pramawat being down 2 Lost Vacuum is a little unfortunate for him. He does play 4 copies of the card, but it's something he's going to have to be looking for to bump his eventual Path to the Peak that'll come into play this turn.
Drawing 4 more. Has a boss's orders. That's pretty nifty. Couple paths. And yeah, it's just going to have to be a 1 prize knockout, or because you can't leave this Meloetta up, right?
You could leave this Meloetta up if you boss KO'd the Mew V with the Fusion Strike energy on it. Take 2 prizes, and then it's a little more difficult for Xander to get everything he would need to get this 1-hit knockout with the Meloetta, but Michael recognizes it's really not worth it. Goes for the judge, is going to go for this 1 single prize, and then look to get the massive 4 damage modifier turn that we saw in game number 1 once again, so that he can go 1 prize on Meloetta, 3 prizes on a VMAX, and then 2 prizes on something else to try to win the game.
And I suppose, ideally, Michael Pramawat does want to find like a Lost Vacuum off of this to get rid of that Forest Sealstone as well on top of the Path to the Peak.
It would be really nice. He is down 2 Lost Vacuum, however.
True.
And something he's going to have to think about because he needs to use Lost Vacuum to bump his own path as well.
There is a Cramomatic. Michael Pramawat thinking, do I want to go for this now? Put a card in my hand. Instead uses his Forest Sealstone to go grab that Lost Vacuum indeed.
Yep, gonna try to disrupt Xander as much as possible, and this is probably what Michael has to do here. He's down 2 prizes right at the start of the game. If he wants to fight back and have a chance to win, he's going to have to slow Xander down somehow, some way.
Yeah, this is how Michael Pramawat won game number 1, sticking that Path to the Peak, also getting rid of Xander Pero's Forest Sealstone, and then there just was no way for Xander to draw cards and truly respond. If this judge left Xander without a Mew VMAX, it becomes a struggle from here.
And Xander, luckily this time for him, does have the Lost Vacuum. So he'll be able to draw plenty of cards here. Did get rid of the Ice Cube, and he's got that Alessa Sparkle in his hand as well. Really not a great card to see because he's already used his Fusion Strike energies.
Mm-hmm. And so now we're pivoting to the Mew VMAX side of the deck, where now it's going to be bringing up these Genesect Vs and these Mew Vs to take other knockouts. After the Escape Rope, Mew V is going to be promoted into the active.
And this is massive, by the way. Michael Pramawat only got one Mew VMAX in play, so Xander's use of Escape Rope functioning pretty much like a boss's orders in this situation.
Yeah.
Forcing a 2-prize Pokemon into the active, it's going to allow him to, if he can find the pieces, get a one-hit knockout here, take 2 prize cards, and then put himself in a position where he just needs one more knockout to try to win the game.
3 cards off of Fusion Strike system. Lost City as well.
Yeah, that's one more way to potentially get rid of a future path.
And then just reading, and you can see how intricate this looks. Even though Xander Burrow is seemingly in a really strong position from here, double-checking the discard pile, seeing what's available. Lost Vacuum, because the Lost City's in hand, is free to use the Lost Vacuum now to get rid of the Choice Belt, preemptively setting up for this Mew VMAX to be in a safe spot. This is a very important judge for Xander Perot. Still needs to find some way to get Mew VMAX.
Yeah, it does still have one Genesect left, so even after this judge does have a little bit more card draw available. Can, of course, play some of the 4 cards that he draws into, hopefully, depending on what he sees, to thin his hand down and really cross his fingers that Mew VMAX is found.
Yeah, and that Lost City is now somewhere in the deck. That'll come in handy later. But if you get set up, Chip, and you are just established on board, you don't have to worry about the path to the peak. You're just swinging for knockouts.
Yep. Now, Xander did find the Ultra Ball, but he's got kind of a tough choice of what to discard here. He either has to discard a double turbo energy or a power tablet. Looks like he'll choose to hang on to that energy card, knowing he'll need it for a future turn potentially, and does lose the power tablet.
So Mew VMAX finally found. Can be promoted into the active. Very smart. Still has, of course, one more Fusion Strike system to draw a few more cards, and it would be glorious here for Xander Perot to maybe find another path to the peak to close this out.
He does find another Genesect so he can keep drawing just a bit more. Also another Mew VMAX. What he wants to do is set up to give himself the best chance to find a boss's orders next turn. That is going to be his easiest path to potential victory.
And Pramawat, get the 50-50. Just going to go for it right now while you have the nice fodder in hand. And just not wanting to get disrupted from the judge.
Yeah, it does hit a Tails, but still worth playing here. You don't really want to draw that Battle VIP pass if you're anticipating getting Ionoed or Judge.
Yes. And so after that, Mew V goes down, and Xander Perot's remaining with only 2 prizes left. Michael Pramawat has to respond. Second Mew VMAX hitting the stage, attaching Fusion Strike energy for turn, and now an Escape Rope. Xander Perot is in the fortunate spot to be able to simply promote a Mew VMAX. Michael Pramawat is down 1 Choice Belt.
Yeah, and I believe only playing 1 copy in this list. That's what most people are on these days. He does find a Pramawat here. This could be a huge flip, Skarzig. Heads means he gets any card out of his deck, and he is able to hit that.
And after the Pramawat heads, just going to evaluate what's in the deck right now, picks up Iono, trying to disrupt, make it so that Xander Perot can't close out this game properly. From this point, it becomes so awkward to try to find the resources needed to take KOs. Michael Pramawat earlier had burned that PAL pad, doesn't have this, boss's orders, recycle kind of line of play that sometimes Mew is able to use. But after the Iono, we'll have to see where these cards end up.
Now, Pramawat did use a power tablet early on in this game and hit the discard pile early on, and his Choice Belt is already in the Lost Zone. So that means he doesn't have a way to one-hit KO this Mew VMAX from Xander's side. Now, he could if he got enough Fusion Strike energy in play, got his Meloetta out of the prizes, and played 1 power tablet. That could get him there, but he recognizes that it's not super likely that's going to happen. I'm just going to have to go for a 2-hit KO line into this Mew VMAX, and that means Pramawat is at minimum 3 turns away from winning this game, where Xander only needs 1.
Yeah, 1 final knockout is going to be key. After, does pick up the Meloetta, however,
yeah, I think it was
still going to
prized
keep
in game 2 is what it was.
Yeah, just going to still keep the threat potential alive, having potentially a single prize buffer.
Yep.
there's always a chance to still buy yourself another turn, especially if Michael Pramawat does get fortunate enough to have a Path to the Peak stick, and then Xander Perot is maybe in a position to only be able to strike at whatever's in the active, or just have a nice pivot off of the escape rope. Pramawat number 2 for the turn is a Tails.
Yeah, and Pramawat did not like to see that. It's going to be 2 cards drawn off this Fusion Strike system. Another Fusion Strike energy.
Finds Path to the Peak, however.
Ideal. I think he needed to not find the Fusion Strike energy most likely. What he needs to do is attack with this Mew VMAX, and then have it not go down, have Xander not win the game, and then on his next turn, he needed to try to attack with the Meloetta, but because he drew his other Fusion Strike energy, it just makes it a little bit more awkward. Xander's going to be able to attack with the clean Mew VMAX on the bench here if he wants to.
Yeah, maybe there's a world where Xander Perot can disrupt, but yep, just has the Forest Seal Stone, can find the boss's orders, and that's going to be the game. Boss's orders bring up a 2-prize Pokemon, and Xander Perot takes game number 3. What a fantastic back-and-forth mirror match, Chip.
Yeah, Xander keeping his composure, losing that game number 1. He knew what he needed to do, and, you know, he's played this deck, like I mentioned, probably more than just about anyone in the game. He knows the lines. He knows what his best chance is to win. And he's able to take down Michael Pramawat, and he's the one moving to 6-0.
Yeah, and I think that I speak for everyone at home especially, right? This wasn't a game, a best of 3, where one player just plays Path to the Peak turn 1 and then their opponent's completely shut out and then it's just a runaway victory. This was back and forth, both players doing what they could to draw into those stadium bumps, still fighting back very aggressively, even under the influence of Path to the Peak, using those Forest Seal Stones and Lost Vacuums to counter the Forest Seal Stones quite effectively.
Tons of cards being drawn. That's the name of the game with the Mew VMAX deck. I mean, it was a dominant game number 1 for Michael. That Path to the Peak just really shut Xander down completely. And then Xander in game 2 really gave Michael a taste of his own medicine. Michael had a worse setup thanks to that Path to the Peak being in play. And Xander pretty quickly ran away with it.
Yeah, there was that really greedy line of using like double vacuum to try to completely clear your hand, draw a ton of cards, see what you could do. But just going to scoop it up here and head to game number 3. And this was also just a back and forth, just slugfest. The Meloetta being the difference maker, I think, for Xander Perot, getting that early 2 prizes.
That turn 1 Melodious Echo was just massive, and it let Xander jump out ahead and go for that classic 2-2-2 line that you try to map out as a Pokemon TCG player to just close out the game.
Right, and because Michael Pramawat was the one that was behind in tempo, had to keep bumping the path and drawing a bunch of cards and not necessarily being able to reestablish path, it gave Xander a lot of freedom to draw tons of cards, go for these Pramamatics and find the pieces needed. And his strategy of trying to save Forest Seal Stone as the final play for the game that he'd been really leaning into over the first couple games paid off finally there at the end.
Yeah, without a doubt. The interesting thing as well for Xander's deck is that there's really nothing interesting about it. He's been the one who's been known to find these unique techs, the surprise Aerodactyl V-Star. I think he was the first player to really adopt that, and that became the meta way to play Mew VMAX for months and months after that. You know, he's played Dreepy in his Mew VMAX decks before.
Dreepy, the Infestation Lock, I think it was called.
Yeah. He's played the Manaphy in his Mew VMAX deck, but this time just kind of going with a classic, consistent Fusion Strike build. Really nothing spicy here.
I know. Oh, he's got the Ice Cube.
Sometimes you don't need anything spicy, though. Sometimes all you need is just consistency, and that's what Xander is focused on for this tournament.
Yeah, the true spice, the tech, the innovation for Mew VMAX is just the friends we made along the way.
Without a doubt. Plenty of friends that Xander will certainly remember for many years to come. Aerodactyl, Manaphy, and the like.
Yeah, bling out your Mew VMAX decks, get the golden power tablets, the whole shebang, and just put it in a little case on the shelf and just celebrate the unholy run of Mew VMAX throughout its entire tenure in Standard.
Yeah, that's what many Mew VMAX players are going to do. I mean, there's tons of people. I mean, Colin Merrily Matthews is